Rashimasei, hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Try from Japan, and today we're looking at another Japanese TV series that you should watch.
痛快なりゆき番組 Fūun Takeshi-jō.
Fūun Takeshi-jō, known as Takeshi's Castle, was a Japanese game show that ran from 1986 until 1990 on the Japanese TBS network, and has since been aired around the world and been the inspiration for many physical challenge-based shows that followed. The original show was filmed at Midoriyama Studios in Yokohama, Japan, which is now home to the Japanese competitive game show Sasuke, which is also known as Ninja Warrior. On each episode, a group of contestants compete in crucial challenges to try and storm Takeshi's castle and win the 1 million yen prize. It featured the Japanese actor Takeshi Kitano, also known as Beat Takeshi, as a count who owns a castle and sets up difficult challenges for players to get to him. Takeshi Kitano was gaining some recognition as an actor through the 1980s, being most recognized at the time for his character in the 1983 movie Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. And after the series ended, he would start to direct his own action and drama movies, leading to an iconic role in the cult action thriller Battle Royale in the year 2000, one of the most recognized and highly recommended Japanese movies for a Western audience. During a prolonged period when Takeshi was forbidden to appear on television, his punishment for an act of violence against reporters and photos from a scandal magazine, one of his emerald guards had to fill in by wearing his robe and a giant papier-mâché Takeshi head, similar to the ones that sports team mascots use over their heads. The army of players would be led by General Tani. He would guide the contestants through all the games and onto the showdown, hoping to beat Takeshi and storm his castle. He was portrayed by Hiato Tane, who up to this point had been best known for a few small roles in movies from the 1960s and 1970s. This would be his most recognizable acting moment, and he would continue as the general throughout the entire series, whilst playing a commander in the 11th entry to the Super Sentai series called Hikari Sentai Mask Man. General Tani is a determined and heroic general. He has the charisma and skills in order to lead his contestants into battle. At the start of the series, he stands no nonsense from the contestants. He is even willing to push and shove contestants if they are failing. As the series progressed, Tani's hard portrayal became quite soft, especially when the contestants involved women and children. He sometimes helps out and would sometimes help them out. Upon reaching the castle, he interviews some of the remaining contestants and congratulates them for getting to the final phase of his attack of the castle. Every time Tani lost the final battle, he would give his remarks and frustrations before leaving and preparing for another attack. Each episode begins with General Tani and his army racing towards the castle boundaries as Takeshi's guards flee ahead of them. Headshots of each of the day's contestants are briefly shown on screen. We then join Count Takeshi at the castle, who is monitoring the invasion with his henchmen. In later episodes, instead of watching the approaching attackers, the Count and his advisor Hagashi often found themselves in various comedic situations. We regularly go back to Takeshi throughout the episode to provide comedy interludes. Before the games begin, the general gives a pep talk to his army in the woods at the edge of the castle grounds. He chats to a few of the contestants before leading the charge onto the first game. Waiting at the first challenge is the battlefield reporter, who provides on-the-ground updates and gives interviews with contestants as the proceedings progress. It's not unknown for the reporter to get involved in the games and lend a helping hand to those in need now and again. The general's army has to battle through around 8 challenges before reaching the castle gates. Each of these games will eliminate those who are not successful in beating it. However, if contestants put in a valiant effort or fail humorously, they will also be allowed to continue onward towards the castle. After passing the final barrier, those who have not been knocked out of the crusade by this point take on Takeshi in one final battle. If the contestants lose, the general retreats to prepare for his next assault. If the contestants win, celebrations, Takeshi begrudgingly awards the victors their prize of 1 million yen. Most of these were regular episodes with a mixture of contestants, but some were particularly special episodes, including couples episodes, family episodes, and regional specific episodes. I'll now take the rest of this video to show you in detail all of the games that were played throughout the entire run of Takeshi's Castle. Barrier of the Border was a tall, two-faced slippy slope that the contestants had to climb over. In order to help them, there were several ropes attached to the top, and grabbing one of them would help them climb the slippy surface. Once a contestant had made it over the top of the wall, they would have to slide down the other side into a small trench of dirty water. Walls to Freedom. Originally the second part of Dragon God Pond, this game involves contestants running at a wall containing 4 doors, one of which is boarded up, one of which contains a net, and 2 of which are made of paper, which allows them to go through to the next set of walls. The idea of the game is that they make it through all of the walls successfully, reaching the end. You can't continue on an empty stomach. Several buns encased in plastic bags are hanging from a rope. In order to succeed, contestants have to grab onto a bun with their mouth, whilst their arms are affixed to their sides by either an inflatable rubber ring or a large potato sack. Boundary Roulette. First, contestants must choose a disc which all have different indicators on them, ranging from numbers from 0 to 36, or the words black, red, odd, or even. They then have to sit down on the corresponding spot on the roulette table. Next, a giant roulette wheel is spun, and the outcome of the spin determines which contestants will be eliminated and which ones go through. First Fortress. Contestants must climb an extremely narrow and steep staircase holding water pistols, all the while making sure that the paper ring attached to their helmet doesn't get destroyed or soaked by Takeshi's guards, who also have water pistols and targets of their own. Devil's Domain. There is a maze composed of either 4-sided or 6-sided rooms laid out in a 4x3 rectangle. The aim is to navigate the maze whilst avoiding the guards and reach the goal. Some doors, however, lead to a pool of water that contestants can fall in, which also constitutes as a loss. Dragon God's Pond. In this game, contestants have to cross a lake via 25, give or take, stones, some of which are affixed to the lake's floor by only a chain, which sink when stepped on. In early versions, a variation of Wall to Freedom is on the other side of the lake. Contestants must choose one of 4 doors, 2 of which are made of paper, 2 of which are solid. Breaking through a paper door results in a win. Heaven and Hell. Contestants have to grab a rope and swing across a muddy pit with the goal of dropping onto a platform. A later version renamed New Heaven and Hell required contestants to get some momentum by running down a pathway first and then swing in a semicircle hoping to land on the platform. Beach Boys and Gals. Contestants have to ride a surfboard, then traverse several obstacles. Originally, contestants had to jump over several styrofoam obstacles designed to look like axolotl, and duck under other obstacles designed to look like a shark's mouth. Later, this was scrapped and brought back as Spinning Beach Boys and Gals. This version was played several feet over water, with the surfboard attached to a rotating arm. The goal was to stay on the surfboard, jumping over the styrofoam obstacles, and reach the finish platform, which was made to look like a tropical island. Sumo Pon. 5 sumo wrestlers are shown in different coloured outfits. Then contestants have to draw a ball from a box, and the ball's colour determines which wrestler they will be up against. They then have to defeat their opponent in a sumo wrestling match in order to win. It's an Earthquake, Grandpa. Wearing grey wigs and clothing traditionally worn by Japanese elders, contestants have to kneel onto a pile of foam blocks and keep their positions whilst the chamber that they're in simulates a small earthquake. Runaway Train of Death. Contestants sit on a mat and are pushed down a sloped track into the water. Their aim is to jump onto a lily pad at the side, either a large wobbly one on the left or a smaller but more stable one on the right. FUD Calligraphy. First, contestants must fire a crossbow onto a small wheel which determines what Japanese character they need to draw. Then they must grab an oversized paintbrush and have 30 seconds to draw the character on the designated area of a wet slope. Adventure Zone. Contestants have to overcome an obstacle course akin to a video game. All the while, a robot atop the background structure moves along. Reaching the end of the course ends in a win, unless the aforementioned robot has reached the finish first. Should this happen, the contestant is then disqualified, and usually thrown into water by the guard. The longest yard. Contestants must carry a football across the playing field, while defenders wearing large foam football player costumes try to prevent them from doing so. Getting pinned on the ground by the defenders means a loss. Mr. Daruma is falling down. Based on a well-known Japanese children's game, and while wearing oversized Daruma costumes, contestants must climb up a hill. Atop the hill is a guard facing away from the contestant, chanting, "Daruma-san has fallen down." After he's finished, he turns around. If he sees anyone moving, they are disqualified. If they fall down the hill, they are also disqualified. Making it to the top of the hill signifies a victory. Flat chest. Wearing a white bodysuit with Velcro on the front, contestants must swing themselves over a lake, then jump and stick onto a Velcro wall in front of them. Roller game. Contestants must cross a large pond by running over 7 rolling pins placed at uneven heights. These pins can rotate on an axis, making it difficult for contestants to keep them stationary. You can't save the ball. First, contestants must knock a ball into a giant pachinko machine. Then they grab a bowl, run down a staircase and wait on a narrow ledge for the ball to come down the machine so that they can jump in a pit of mud and try and catch it in their bowl as it falls. Study the cards game. Wearing oversized hand costumes, 5 contestants compete against 5 of Takeshi's guards. As the start of each round, Takeshi-jō will recite a mathematical problem or a question with a numerical answer, and once he is done doing so, contestants must find the correct answer and jump their hand onto it. You too are Masaru Uno, kid. Wearing oversized baseball player costumes, contestants must catch a baseball that either pop or corn bats in the air. This game is played multiple times with the same group. Aquatic volleyball. Taking place on a mat floating on water, contestants must play a game of volleyball and score 3 points first. There are 3 possible opponents: Takeshi's guards, a female volleyball team, or women in swimwear. Strait of Gibraltar. Taking place on an unstable and wobbly bridge, contestants must first catch and hold onto a golden ball shot to them by General, then make their way across the bridge. All the while, Takeshi's guards fire cannonballs at them. I don't know. Contestants sit on a circular disc on a rolling track. They are pushed down and several signs forming a mathematical problem pop up. Once at the end of the track, they need to solve and say the result of the problem out loud. Answering incorrectly or failing to give an answer will make the end of the track collapse, causing the contestant to fall into a tub of flour, or in later versions of the game, a pile of mud. Star bowling. Contestants must pick one of 10 playing cards, which are numbered 1 through 10. This determines their position in a 10-pin bowling situation. Contestants are then placed into oversized bowling pin costumes with their ankles taped together. Large foam bowling ball is then rolled at them. If a contestant remains standing, they win. If they fall over, they lose. Pulling hell. Contestants choose one of 5 coloured ropes, the ends of which are obstructed by a large wall. Contestants then engage in a tug-of-war game with whoever or whatever is holding the opposite side of the rope they choose. Ball run. Contestants must climb up a steep slope, all the while Takeshi's guards roll down differently sized boulders at them. They can use several gaps in the wall to avoid them, but once they use a gap, it closes on them. Stab and be stabbed. In a challenge modelled after the popular children's game Pop-Up Pirate, contestants sit on a giant barrel. They must choose one of 6 slots, with Takeshi-jō sliding a sword inside. Choosing one of the 2 trapped slots will cause the barrel's top to tip over, which in turn makes the contestant slide down a slope into a pond. The goal is to pick 3 slots correctly. Ladder lottery of difficult times. Contestants must choose one of 5 doors, then follow the path until they come across a junction, akin to a ladder lottery. Once they reach the end of the path, they need to climb up a set of stairs and slide down the slide. If they've chosen the correct slide, they will slide into safety. An incorrect slide will drop them in the mud. Combinations of love. Played in pairs, contestants must choose either odd or even. Then, wearing oversized dice costumes, they are rolled down the slope one at a time, and the sum of the 2 dice rolled must correspond whichever option the couple chose at the beginning. You jumped. Congratulations. Contestants start on a high-up platform and need to pole vault across a pond in order to land onto a smaller platform. Dash over the mud, youth. Simulating a baseball game, the pitcher throws a ball that the batter purposefully misses. Once the catcher has caught the ball, contestants must run from first to second base, traversing a large strand of mud before getting tagged out. Rush out, youth. Contestants wait behind saloon doors in front of a pit of mud. On the general's whistle, Takeshi-jō will shoot a soccer ball in the air, and the contestants need to traverse the mud pit to catch the ball. Drifting and bobbing. The contestant sits in a giant bowl at the top of a wet slope. 2 of the emerald guards are at the top of the hill. They push the bowl down the hill towards a pool at the bottom. The contestant has to stay balanced inside the bowl as it slides down the hill and hits the water at the bottom. If they are still inside when the bowl ends up floating in the pool, then they win the game. Revolving Komanechi. There are 2 planks rotating anti-clockwise in the air. The aim is to walk across both planks to reach the goal without falling off. The contestant must step on the first rotating plank, walking quickly across to the end, avoiding a row of hanging skull mats that obstruct and knock them off if they aren't quick enough. They then must time the gap between the planks to step across and make it past another row of mats to get to the platform on the other side. 2 variations of the game were played. In earlier episodes it was over a pit of flour, and in later episodes it was over water. Mushroom plop. The contestants start on a high platform at the edge of a lake and have to grab onto the stalk of a giant mushroom suspended on a wire above them. Once the mushroom is released, it slides down the wire, spinning around as it goes. The contestant must drop at the right time to land and stay balanced on the floating finishing platform. To help them to grip on, there is 1 small hand-hold hole in the stalk. Women also get a rope to wrap around the stalk for extra grip. Snowman San fell down. 5 contestants play this game at once. They all begin by choosing from 5 cards at random. The card corresponds to their position in the game. They then sit on a giant puck and have a snowman-shaped case put over the top of them. They are then arranged in a triangle, with an empty snowman puck at the top of the triangle and the contestants positioned behind. The Emerald Guard animal then pushes a giant puck down the ice slope towards them. When it hits them, they are slid around, and any of the contestants knocked off of the platform will lose the game. Street Corner TV. The contestant must enter a karaoke bar and sing along to mystery songs without being shown the lyrics. If they entertain the bar's boss, then they win, and are taken through to the back room by the bunny or geisha girls. If the boss is unhappy, however, he will get them physically thrown out of the door of the bar, and they will lose. Bridge over the battlefield. In this game, there is a bodyboard at the end of a long platform. The contestant needs to run up and jump on the board to make it slide along the runway platform. The aim is to make the board stop at the arrow or in the goal area at the end of the runway. If the contestant pushes off too hard, they'll slide straight off the end into the water below and lose the game. If they don't push off hard enough, they won't reach the goal, will come up short, and they will get pushed off into the water by Akado, the sea goblin, also causing them to lose the game. Mouth of the Devil. The contestants get into a box that is suspended in the air on a wire over a pit of mud. Once inside the box, they have to use a pulley to move themselves along the wire. In the middle of the mud pit is a platform. The contestants have to try and position the box above the platform, but they can't see their whereabouts, and so it's all down to guesswork. Once they think they are over the platform, the contestant pulls a lever to open the floor of the box, causing them to fall down and hopefully onto the platform itself. If they drop or fall into the mud, however, they will lose. Second, fort. The contestant, armed with a water pistol and paper ring, must make the climb up a hill to reach the fort at the top, but coming down the hill, trying to stop the contestant, is a guard dressed in a random costume. The guard also has a ring and water pistol. The contestant and guard have to try and break each other's rings with the water pistols. If the contestant breaks the guard's ring first, they win and can go straight to the top of the fort and win the game. Animal Bang. The contestants, who are dressed in giant foam baseball outfits, have to cross a tall balancing beam from one side to the other, whilst trying to avoid 3 giant baseballs that are being swung at them by one of Takeshi's guards, who is lovingly known as Animal. Do your best, whales. The contestants have to ride a bicycle which has been made to look like a whale around a snaking path made of bumps, corners and ramps, whilst one of the guards will fire balls at the bike from a cannon to try and knock them off of the path. Horse Race Challenge. 6 contestants play at a time. All of them are dressed as horses and wearing roller skates. When the general fires the starting pistol, the race begins. They then have to skate out and reach the finishing line, jumping over hurdles as they go, the same as in a competitive horse race. First 2 contestants to cross the finish line go through, and the other 4 remaining will lose. Weight of Parent and Child, or Weight of Love. A game played on the family and couples specials. There is a row of 10 planks floating in a lake. The pairs need to cross the water by stepping from one plank to another. The 2 contestants have to step on the opposite ends of the planks. If weight is just put on one side, the plank will tip up, so the contestants need to step onto and off of each plank at the same time as each other to keep it balanced. If they make it to the finishing platform without falling in the water, they win the game. Drop Gently. A game played on the family specials. The child has to sit on the top of a stack of 3 big discs, while the parent stands at the side with a giant mallet. The parent has to first whack the middle disc so that it flies out from the stack. As they hit it, the child needs to jump up so that the tower has no pressure on it, letting the disc move out without taking the one above with it. If they manage to do this successfully, the top disc will drop down onto the bottom disc and the child will remain on the top. Next, the parent has to knock out the bottom disc. Again, the child needs to jump at the right time to allow this to happen. If they get it right again, there will be just 1 disc left, with their child sitting on top, and they have won the game. If the tower falls over, or if the child falls off at any time, they will lose. Scarred Roller. In this game, a big cylinder is laid on a metal track above the water. The contestant has to stand on top of the cylinder and move it along the rails to the end. The track ramps slightly downhill. It then flattens off towards the middle before turning into a steeper slope near the end, so the contestant needs excellent balance to stay on top as the cylinder rolls down the track. If they fall off before the finishing platform, then sadly they lose. Resistive Horse Taming. The contestants have to ride a dinosaur version of a bucking bronco as a pink bat moves around the room on a wire in the air. The idea of the game is to shoot the bat down with their water pistol as they rotate around on the bucking bronco. If they fail to knock down the bat or fall from the dinosaur, then they lose the game. Fly Away, Condor. Dressed as a bird, contestants are pulled along a wire suspended in the air. Halfway along, they must pick up a big rabbit with their feet and hold onto it until they reach a nest, then drop it into the nest before reaching the other side. They lose if they miss the rabbit, drop the rabbit, or miss dropping the rabbit into the nest. and to make things even harder, they are facing cannon fire from the guards. Domino, no way! The contestants have to run across the top of a row of 16 giant dominoes to reach the opposite platform. They need good balance and speed, as the dominoes may topple and take the whole row with them. If they fall off the dominoes, then they lose. Snowman leaping. Between the starting platform and the finishing platform, lots of snowmen are positioned. The contestant needs to get to the finishing platform by stepping across the heads of the snowmen. Some of the heads are fixed, but others are loose and will roll off when trodden on. If the contestant manages to get to the finishing platform without falling to the ground, they win the game. Slide crash. The contestant sits on a rubber donut sledge at the top of a snowy hill and is then pushed down it. They need to keep balanced on top while speeding over several bumps until they reach the goal at the bottom of the hill. If they are still remaining on the rubber donut when they reach the goal, they win the game. Hello, Turtle, Turtle-san. In this game, a long bridge of slippery turtles are floating in the sea. On the whistle, the contestant has to start running over them to try and reach the finishing platform at the other end. If the contestant falls in the water at any time, then they lose the game. A few seconds after the starting whistle is blown, a guard is released from a cage on the starting platform and takes chase after the contestant. The contestant needs to be quick, as if the guard catches them, they'll be thrown into the water and lose. Great Hunter. In this game, the guards dress as animals in costumes that have big heads. On each contestant's turn, one of the animals has to cross the shooting range. The contestant who is a few meters away has to fire balls from the general's cannon and try and knock off the animal's head before it reaches the other side to win. Corinth Boom. The contestant is curled up and shut inside a big plastic ball. Joe, with the help of the boxing monster, then rolls them into the giant pachinko machine. The contestant in the ball is bounced down to the bottom of the machine and must avoid the boxes marked with skulls to win. A game of luck rather than skill, as they can't control the way the ball is falling. Boundary of Christmas and Boundary of New Year was a starting game played on the Christmas and New Year special episodes. There are lots of rolled up bibs hanging in the air. When the game starts, the contestants must run out and grab a bib for themselves, putting it on. Each bib has one of 6 Japanese characters on it, which mean Fūun, Takeshi-jō. When they're wearing a bib, they must find the 5 other contestants with the different characters from them and line up to spell Fūun Takeshi-jō, the name of the game show itself. They must then tie their legs together to make a 7-legged version of a 3-legged race and make their way to the finish line before the final whistle blows. Boundary of Perfection was another starting game where, laid out on the ground, there were lots of polystyrene shapes and lots of mats with matching shapes cut out of them. All the contestants must run out together, grab a shape and find the mats that the shape fits into. Everyone who is sitting on their shape which is correctly slotted into the right mat when the final whistle blows will go through. Some of the shapes, however, do not have a mat that fits and will automatically lose. Boundary Swamp. This was another starting game where contestants run up over a hill and slide down into a giant thick muddy puddle. They must wade through the puddle and make it out of the other side to reach the finishing line, with the slowest contestants who reach the finishing line losing. Join Those Pictures Right. A rare starting game that was only played once in the entire show. On the ground there were lots of giant jigsaw pieces composed of parts of animals. The contestants must grab a piece and then find the other contestants with pieces that slot together to create the full animal. Each picture had 4 pieces in total, and some of the pieces didn't connect with any others, meaning that those contestants were out of the game. Clue of Love. Another rare starting game that was only played once in the entire show, in an episode which was a family special. There are 84 bags on the ground, and all the contestants' children are tied inside them with only their arms sticking out. The parents then had to find their child without being able to see into the bags. They must select a bag and hope that when they open it, it is their child inside to progress. All-Star Big Sports Day. A once only played game in the entire series, 6 contestants at one time have to race against each other through an obstacle course. Halfway through, they must claim an envelope with a number inside, which corresponds to a mystery rickshaw that they need to pull along to the finish line. Some of the rickshaws have soft toys aboard, and others have the heavy emerald guards. The first to cross the line is the winner and goes through. Floating Gourd Island. Again, another once-only played game. The contestants must run into the water and swim out to a small platform floating in the sea. Once they reach it, they must climb on and stay on until the final whistle is blown. However, there are 2 guards on the platform who will try to stop the contestants boarding or even staying on the platform itself. Pie Hit Ending. A once-only played game in the entire series. To begin with, contestants roll a giant dice. The number they roll tells them which hole in the giant cake that they must get into. Hole 1 in the giant cake is closest to a pie-throwing guard, and hole 6 is furthest away. The pie chucker then throws a custard pie at their head, which is sticking out of the hole. If they are hit in the face, then they are out of the game. You're the one who rings that bell. A once-only played game, the contestants start on a raft at the top of a slope which is then pushed down into the water below. When they hit the water, the contestant has to stay balanced on top as it glides over the lake to a slippery slope. At the top of the slope they must ring a bell. If they fall in the water at any time, then they lose. Joiner's Boundary. A once-only played game. Laid out on the ground are lots of different pairs of footwear. These range from shoes to sandals, tin can stilts to giant feet. The contestants run over, grab a pair and put them on their own feet. And then they must attempt to cross an area of a sticky substance on the ground. The more unconventional the footwear, the harder it will be to walk across the sticky floor. The slowest contestants to get to the finish line lose. Giant Maze. A once-only played game, contestants must maneuver through a giant maze all at the same time, reaching the exit within a designated time period. A couple of emerald guards are inside who are attempting to redirect them and will block off the exit and capture the remaining contestants when the final whistle blows, causing them all to lose. Rolling Acorn. Again, a once-only played game in the entire series. Whilst wearing an acorn costume and with their feet tied together, the contestants have to make their way along a narrow curving path without falling off of it. Sumaki Ball Run. Again, a once only played game in the entire series. The contestants have to make their way up a steep hill whilst avoiding giant nuts that are being rolled down towards them by the emerald guards. To make things even harder, the contestants are wrapped in padding and a straw mat, making it difficult to move, and the slope is also covered in a slippy foam. They win if they get to the red zone at the top of the hill and fail if they fall back down to the bottom of the slope. Stuck Together in Bed. A once only played game for the couples special episode. All the couples are split and start behind sheets on opposite sides. When the starting whistle is blown, they must run out and try and find their partner and get into one of the beds together. There are not enough beds, however, for every couple, so those who are not in a bed at the end will lose. The Boy Who Rowed a Boat. A once only played game in the entire series, the contestant lies on a bodyboard in the sea at the starting line. On go, the board is pulled along by a speedboat. The contestant has to try and stay on the board as it is pulled through 2 lines of buoys and then over a ramp, and must jump off at the correct time to land on a floating finishing platform. Slide Crash. A once only played game, the contestant dressed as a monster starts on a platform raised several stories in the air. Connecting to the platform is a long fabric tube that leads down to the ground. The contestant has to get into the tube and slide down it. Near the bottom is an opening in the material, and under this is a platform floating in the lake. When they reach the opening, the contestant has to drop out of it and try and land on the platform safely without falling into the water. Rock, Paper, Scissors, Heaven. This once only played game appeared in a Celebrity Contestant special. In this game, the contestants play Janken Pon, or rock, paper, scissors, against an emerald guard. The contestant stands on a platform, with the guard on another next to him. Music will play, and they both must dance, but when the music ends, they must show each other their chosen sign. A fist for rock, a flat hand for paper, or a sideways V sign for scissors. As in a normal game of rock, paper, scissors, rock beats scissors, scissors beat paper, and paper beats rock. If the guard wins, the contestants are lowered into a pit of steam and will lose. Parent Turtle, Child Turtle. A once played game from one of the Family Special episodes. Dressed as turtles, the parent has to crawl along a narrow snake pathway in the middle of a lake whilst carrying their child on their back. To make this harder, however, the parent is blindfolded and the child must direct them. They win if they reach the other side without falling into the water. Space Invaders. This was a replacement penultimate game for two special space-themed episodes. Starting at the top of a hill, the contestant sits in a cable car holding a laser gun. In different positions down the hill are stations with a guard in each, and all the stations have a sensor on them. As the cable car moves down the hill, the contestant has to try and shoot a sensor on one of the stations. If the contestant manages to hit one of the sensors, all the stations will go up in smoke. The contestant wins the game and moves on to the final showdown. However, the guards can fight back. If they shoot the sensor on the cable car, then the contestant loses. The contestant doesn't have to hit a guard sensor to win, however. If they make it all the way down the hill without their sensor being hit, then they are also through to the final showdown. Parent-Child Zigzag. Played during two of the family specials. 5 parents at a time are dressed as giant darumas and stood on platforms which are able to be controlled remotely by their child. The children must steer their parents around the course to the finish line whilst avoiding jets of steam which may knock them from the platform. If a parent falls off, they must get back on and continue from where they originally were. The first 2 parents to make it across the finish line whilst still aboard their platforms wins. The remaining 3 automatically will lose. Potato-san Fell Down. A one-off game which is essentially the same as Daruma-san Fell Down, except all of the contestants are wearing giant potato outfits instead of darumas. Corn Plop. A one-off game which is essentially the same as Mushroom Plop, except the contestants hold on to a giant corn cob in this version. Rock Dropping. This game, which was only played once, is very similar to Ball Run, except the course does not resemble a volcano and is now much wider, and 3 contestants climb up the slope at the same time whilst avoiding multiple boulders being thrown down from the top. Helicopter Boundary. A once only played starting game. All contestants start on the beach. A helicopter flies over and drops hundreds of coloured balls into the sea. The contestants then have to swim out and grab a ball for themselves and return to the beach. Once back on the beach, they are split into 8 groups depending on the colour of the ball that they chose. The general then stands on a platform in front of everyone and calls out a Japanese character and then picks a ball at random from a box. The colour of the ball he picks determines which group gets that particular Japanese character. This is done 7 times for the 7 characters Sei, Mi, Ru, Takeshi, and Joe. The team that doesn't get picked out of the box automatically moves on to the next round. When the whistle blows, each team has to run over to a giant piece of paper and arrange their bodies into the shape of their particular character. The teams then need to arrange themselves in order, so the characters spell out Semaru Takeshi-jō, which means attack Takeshi's castle. The helicopter will then fly over with the calligraphy expert who determines the team who least looks like the character they are supposed to portray, and they are the losing team. The Great Pole. A once-only played game where a team of contestants compete against a group of Emerald Guards. Each of them has a pole with a flag on top. When the game begins, half of each group has to try and grab the other team's flag, while the rest of them have to try and protect their own flag and hold their pole upright. The first team to pull down the opponent's flag from the pole wins. If the team of contestants lose, then they are all eliminated. Parents-Child Treasure, or Boundary Treasure Hunt. A game that was only played twice, once in a family special and once as a starting game. The contestants all enter a secret garden and have to search for golden balls. The balls are hidden all over the garden. Some are easier to find than others. Some, for example, are hanging from trees, in a mouldy pond, or under boxes. Others, however, are a lot harder to find, such as being buried in the ground, hidden inside of trees, or even down the costumes of the Emerald Guards who are dressed as garden ornaments. Swim Mud Skipper. A starting game only played once in the series. All the contestants have to crawl, wade and drag themselves through thick mud flats. Halfway through the mud are red and blue banners hanging from wires suspended in the air. The contestants need to reach up and grab one of these banners and make it to the other side of the mud flat to be able to move on to the next round. Hot Spring Karuta. A rare game that appeared on only 2 episodes. A group of contestants play at the same time, starting at the edge of a pool. Laying on the bottom of the pool are a selection of cards and mats. A question is asked and the contestants have to dive underwater to find a card or mat with the correct answer on it. The person to bring the correct answer to the surface wins the round. Take a Trip, Cute Child. A rare game played only on the family special episodes. This has the same rules as Bridge over the Battlefield, with the only difference being that the parents push the child on the bodyboard, and the board is designed to look like an aeroplane. Midoriyama Battle Game Number 1. The first part in a starting game for all the contestants that was only played once in the Obstacle Course special episode. All the contestants begin on a starting line, and when the general fires the starting pistol, the race begins. The contestants first have to dash out of the car park and down the road outside. Here, the first obstacle is to jump over 5 small hurdles. Next is a long net on the ground which must be crawled under. After the net, there are lots of tyres laid out along the road. The contestants have to step through these tyres to reach 3 sets of mats which are spaced out along the next section of road. On each of these mats, the contestants must do a forward roll. After these, it's a long run around the connecting roads. The roads loop back on themselves, so the contestants will end back at the 3 mats again. Just as before, they have to do a roll on each, then it's back through the tyres and the crawl under the net. Finally, they run up a set of steps to reach the finishing line at the top. A select number of contestants that complete the course in the slowest time are eliminated. Midoriyama Battle Game Number 2. The second part in a starting game for all the contestants that was only played once in the Obstacle Course special episode. All contestants must race through this obstacle course, which is made up of 3 of the other regular games from Takeshi's Castle. Firstly, there is a round of climbing the boundary wall. Then on to finding the exit of the Demon's Mansion. And then finally across the Dragon God Pond stones to reach the finishing line. The contestants who finish in the slowest time or fail to finish the course are eliminated. Hiroshima Qualifier. Another game only played one time on the Obstacle Course special episode. 2 contestants race each other through this obstacle course. They begin the race on deer-shaped tricycles. First they have to pedal up and over a bridge, and then carry on until they reach a slippery wall. Leaving their tricycles behind, they must run up the slope and down the other side, picking up a giant bat. The guard Joe places a ball on this bat, which the contestants have to keep balanced on top as they make their way over to a giant hat. If they drop the ball, the contestant has to stop, rebalance the ball on the bat, and then carry on. Once they reach the hat, they top the ball into it. Next, the contestants run over to a giant maple leaf that has shoulder straps attached to it. They need to put it on their back, and then finally walk across a balance beam to get to the finish line. If they fall off at any time, they have to step back on where they fell and continue. Those who take too long to finish the course are eliminated. Okinawa Qualifier. Another game only played one time on the obstacle course special episode. 2 contestants race each other through this obstacle course. They begin on a floating starting mat in the sea. When the whistle blows, the contestants have to leap across a row of 6 smaller, slippery floating platforms. They must then jump into the sea and swim over to the shore. When they reach the shore, the contestants need to slip a ring around their waists. Attached to the ring is a big rake, which also has tyres tied to the end during the men's races. They must then run up the beach whilst dragging the rake behind them, raking the sand until they reach a loop of plastic. Now the contestants need to take off the rake and get in the middle of the plastic loop. Inside them they must roll up on the beach, if you imagine how a tank's tracks work, over to a slippery wall. Finally they must climb that wall, which has water running down it, to try and reach the goal at the top. Those who take too long to finish the course are eliminated. Osaka Qualifier. Another game only played one time on the obstacle course special episode. 2 contestants at a time race each other through this obstacle course. On the whistle, the contestants run out of the starting doors wearing samurai costumes. First they have to walk across a balance beam, which is made more difficult by the long trousers of the costume. When they're across the beams, the contestants take off the costumes and put on a bucket with shoulder straps on their backs. Balls are shot into the air from a cannon by the guard, and the contestants have to catch one of the balls in their bucket before they can move on. Once they've got a ball, they take off the bucket and climb over a mini wall. Once they are on the other side, they slide down to reach a small hurdle with a plate of food behind it. The contestants then must put their feet on the hurdle and pick up the 3 pieces of food only using their mouths. When the food is in their mouth, the contestants must get up and put a mask on the back of their heads. Finally, they must run backwards so the mask faces forwards along a track to the finishing line. Those who take too long to finish are eliminated. Hokkaido Qualifier. Another game only played one time on the obstacle course special episode. 2 contestants at a time race each other through this obstacle course. On the starting whistle, the contestants have to get down low and pull themselves through tracks in the snow. After this, they must jump down into a big hole and then climb out again on the other side. Once out, there's a second hole to jump into and climb out of again. Next is a hill made of snow. The contestants have to put on a fat fox costume and run up the hill, try not to topple over and roll back down to the bottom. At the top of the hill, the contestants take off the costumes and sit on a rubber donut-shaped sledge. They then have to slide down the other side of the hill, keep going until they reach the finish line. Those who take too long to finish the course are eliminated. Tokyo Qualifier. Another game only played one time on the obstacle course special episode. 2 contestants at a time race each other through this obstacle course. Dressed in a fat sumo costume, the contestants have to first jump over 5 mini hurdles and then walk along a balance beam. Once over the balance beam, they need to take the costume off and climb over a wall, using a ladder to get down the other side. Next, there are 2 giant plastic satchels on the ground. The contestants must pick one up, put it on their back, and walk over to a tray on the floor. On the tray are 3 marshmallows. The contestants must bend over and pick up all 3 marshmallows using only their mouths. When they've got them all in their mouth, it's then a run to the finish line. Those who take too long to finish the course are eliminated. Midoriyama Battle, Final Game. This Ultimate Showdown is the last game in the obstacle course special episode. When the general blows his whistle, the contestant first has to run through a long pit of thick mud, pushing through hanging mats as they go. Next it's on to the regular game of Dragon God Pond. However, if they fall in from a stone, they can swim their way to the end instead of having to start again. Next they have to use a rope to swing over heaven and hell, landing on the middle platform, or swimming to the edge and carrying on if they miss the platform. After this they must push a big ball up the second fort hill and then run over the Strait of Gibraltar, but they have no golden ball to carry, only the cannon fire to avoid. Falling off means starting from the bridge and trying again. After crossing the bridge it's a dash over to the bottom of the drifting and bobbing hill. Here the contestant has to strap a big kite to their back and climb up the hill whilst a giant fan is blowing towards them. Once at the top of the hill, the contestant can take off the kite, run all the way back down the hill, and then climb over the finish line to get to the front of the castle. The fastest man and fastest woman to complete this course each win 1,000,000 yen. There is no showdown with the Count and his guards in this episode. Fifth, Pow Splash. Another game that was only played one time. The contestant has to blindly pick a coloured ball out of a box. The colour of the ball represents the guard that they will be fighting against. In the middle of a pool are two small round platforms, a short distance from each other. The contestant stands on one of these platforms, whilst the chosen guard stands on the other. Each of them then is given a long lance with a big rounded end. On the whistle, the contestant and guard have to push and prod each other with their lances, trying to knock each other off of the platforms. If the contestant manages to push the guard into the water, they win the game, but if the guard pushes them off first, they have been eliminated. Big Obstacle Course is a starting game only played once in the whole series. All the contestants at once must race through this obstacle course on the beach. When the game begins, the contestants run over to where lots of buns in bags are hanging from wires and must grab a bun in their mouths. Once they have a bun in their mouth, the contestants must crawl under a long net on the ground. On the other side of the net is a large area of sand where hundreds of silver balls have been hidden. The contestants have to dig in the sand to find a ball and then take it with them as they run to the finish line. Only once they're at the finish line can they open up the ball, and inside is a piece of paper. If the paper has a red circle on it, the contestants have cleared the game. However, if it says Suka, which is miss in Japanese, they need to run back and try to find another ball from the digging area. They need to repeat this process and return to the finishing line to check the ball until they get a red circle or the time eventually runs out. Anyone without a red circle after the time runs out is eliminated. Human Curling. Played only one time, this game has the contestants running and jumping onto a giant curling rock to slide it along an icy runway. They have to make it to and stop on the goal at the end of the runway to win the game. Along the way, the runway gets narrower, wider, and then narrower again, so the contestant has to slide as straight as they can to avoid falling off of the edge. Also, as the rock moves with the contestant on it, two of the Emerald Guards move ahead, sweeping the ice like in curling in an attempt to distract the contestant and alter the path of the sliding rock. Midoriyama Grand Prix, a rare game that appeared on only 2 episodes. 5 contestants race each other around a track on children's tricycles. When the starting flag is waved, the contestants first cycle along to and up a seesaw. When there's enough weight on the other side, it will tip down, allowing them to carry on along the track. Anyone who hasn't got onto the seesaw will have to wait for it to tip back down the other way to be able to progress. After turning a corner, the track goes uphill and gets very narrow. As contestants pass over the top of the hill, steam blows up from under the track, causing a distraction and restricting their view. The track ramps back downhill into a corner. At this corner is a pond. If the contestants come down the ramp too fast, they'll end up rolling off the track and going into the water. Finally, they cycle around the rest of the turning track to a second seesaw. Again, this will tip up when enough weight is put on the raised end, allowing the contestants to go down and reach the finish line. The winner is the first one to get to the finish line. Target Practice Game. In this one-off final game, those remaining contestants were given the chance to win some real prizes to take home. To try and win, the contestants have to shoot small balls from a machine at the prizes which are moving along on conveyor belts. The forfeit prizes worth nothing are the biggest targets on boards that move along at the back. The other prizes are written on smaller boxes, the middle prizes in blue and the better prizes in red. There is also a yen on offer. This is written in gold on a small box and moves along the back belt faster than any of the other prizes, making it the hardest to hit. The contestant wins all the prizes they manage to knock off the conveyor belt in the time period. Boinging Pompocolin. Another game only played once. The contestant is strapped into a harness and hung high above a mud pit. On the general's command, they are pulled along a wire in the air. Floating in the middle of the muddy water pit below is a bowl with a ball in it. When they're near enough, the contestant must pull a cord that will drop them down on a bungee rope so they can grab the ball and then quickly throw the ball into a pot at the end of the pit. If they miss or didn't manage to pick up the ball in the first place, the contestant loses and gets dunked in the muddy water. River Climbing Salmon. Another game that was only played one time in the entire series. On the whistle, all the contestants have to try and climb over a small slippery slope. Once they've made it up, they slide down the other side where a long net is waiting on the ground that must be crawled under. Standing on top of the net are guards trying to stop the contestants being able to move through the net. On the other side of the net are a patch of large vegetables. Men must grab a leek and women must grab a carrot. They must take them and climb into a giant cooking pot to clear the game. Fail to be in the pot when the final whistle blows, and they are eliminated. Man-eating holes. The penultimate challenge for most of the series' run. The contestants must jump into one of 5 large holes in the ground, 2 of which are being guarded by monsters, and the last 3 leading to Takeshi's castle. Any remaining contestants would have then faced Count Takeshi and his army for a final showdown. Originally, the first 5 episodes of the first series saw the contestants attempt to siege the castle physically, walking through a set made up of the castle walls and battlements, with the aim of reaching the Count at the top. And much like the game First Fortress, both contestants and the Count and his army had water pistols and paper rings on helmets, with the aim of destroying the paper ring to defeat the enemy and finally Takeshi himself. From episode 6 to episode 130, the showdown would occur in dodgem-style vehicles with paper rings attached to the front, and Takeshi would be in his own dodgem, where the contestants again would aim to destroy his paper ring to win, but would be out of the game if their ring was damaged. Episode 88 would change up the paper rings for laser guns and sensors on the dodgems, and the general would also have his own cart and help the contestants in their fights to hit the Count's sensor. This would remain the format until the final episode 130. On a number of occasions, Takeshi would leave his cart for an open-top plane circling above, which the contestants would have to avoid his laser fire on, whilst taking out the vehicle which had been driven by his advisor and sidekick Higashi. Getting to the final showdown was a big task. Most episodes would start with more than 100 contestants, and very rarely would there be more than 10 who made it all of the way. And even then, the showdown would be an almost impossible task, with most episodes ending with the Count and his army defeating all of the competitors. On the 30th of March 2022, Amazon Prime Video announced that it would be reviving Takeshi's Castle for worldwide release on their streaming platform as a co-production with Tokyo Broadcasting System. The set was constructed between April and July 2022 at Midoriyama Studios, the very place that the original series was filmed over 32 years prior, and filming took place between July and August of 2022. The first 4 episodes of the brand new series premiered on the 21st of April 2023, with the second batch of 4 episodes being released the following Friday, the 28th of April. The reimagined games are now powered up to be tougher than before. The modern designs are a lot brighter than the realistic angle the originals took, and all were built around the main field area, as opposed to integrated into the hills and greenery of the studio lot, as the classic games of the original series were. The castle itself was totally redesigned, now taking more inspiration from authentic Japanese strongholds rather than the fanciful look of the original. More realistic, yet with LED screens and a giant inflatable mechanical arm. Hayao Tani has returned to reprise his role alongside a new general, actor Saburo Kimura. There are now also 3 additional castle owners, Lord Ueda, Princess Naomi, and Lord Ichikawa, that the general's aim is to overthrow. Each army attack is directed towards one of the rulers and split across 2 episodes. As before, for each attack, the generals send their army of contestants into battle to overcome the games and guards that are there to stop them from reaching the castle for the final battle. In a difference to the original series, after the first game, the contestants are split up into 2 or more groups and sent off on different paths. Each group takes on a different second challenge. Those who fail their game aren't out of the battle yet. They have a chance to win their place back in the general's army by taking on a comeback game. Win this and they get to rejoin their group for the next challenge. There's also another way to win your place in the next round without successfully completing a game, and that's by being given a Fighting Spirit Award. These may be given out to any loser who really threw themselves into the game, and one who usually ended up failing remarkably. The surviving attackers then move on to face the next hurdle of their group's path. Those who clear this or earn their place through another subsequent comeback game rejoin the other group and become one army again to attempt the final challenge. The handful that beat this last game get the chance to take on the ruler of the castle. If a contestant wins, they are awarded a well-deserved 1 million yen prize. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done already. And as always, I only have one last thing to say, and that is arigatou gozaimasu, and I shall see you on the next video.